Hey guys, welcome to Ben Wrenchin. My name's Ben and today I'm wrenching on my 2004 Honda Accord. I've got an ABS light that I'm trying to fix today. I recently compared my OBD2 scanners and I found that my ABS light is coming from the front passenger wheel speed sensor. And I know it could be an issue with the wiring to the sensor, but I just got a new one on Amazon because it's cheap. So I'm gonna install that and see if that takes care of my ABS light. Shouldn't be too bad, I just gotta take the wheel off and change out that sensor. Hoping I don't have to take the caliper and the rotor off, but we'll see. So I'll get it jacked up and get the tire off and we'll get into it. So I turn the wheel all the way to the right to give me better access to this sensor. It bolts in behind the rotor right here and runs up through a bracket and into that port right there. So I'll have to disconnect it here, get it out of these two brackets, and disconnect it here where it goes into the wheel. So it's just a few bolts, doesn't look too bad. But before I get started, I wanted to take a look at it and see what it came with. The one I got on Amazon is a premium brand. I'll link this in the description. So it actually comes with new brackets, which is nice. I can take this whole top bracket off and I don't have to reuse it since this one comes with a new one. And it also comes with a new bracket for this one, so I can just take that off too. So that's good news. The only difficulty I see is that connector there is right here and it's got some extra length before it's got the actual electrical connector, which means that I'll have to pop that out and find out where it plugs in inside there. It shouldn't be too bad because this piece has just got a couple of clips that you push and pull it out. So I'll just have to find where the electrical connector is on the other side, get that unplugged, and then snake this in through there, reattach the brackets, and then get it plugged in down here. And under the hood, I can see that orange connector. It's just below the AC ports right down here, so that shouldn't be too bad to get to. I've actually got quite a bit of room behind the engine to get back there, so I don't think that's gonna be too bad. But I am gonna start there and make sure that I can get that out first. So I've got these electrical disconnect pliers. These are made by Lisle. They come in all kinds of angles and stuff. I've just got the straight pliers. I'll link those in the description. Those would make this a lot easier, but just in case you don't have them, I'm gonna try to get it out without them. It's in a pretty weird spot, but I can get to it and push that tab down and hopefully pull this out. And there's just too much stuff right here for me to get this out. I could probably get it if I spent some time on it, but I'm gonna make it easier on myself and just use these pliers. There we go. So just below that orange connector is that white cap that I just need to pop the tabs on the side and push that through. So it's a little difficult to reach in here, but I can get my hands on it. And I really just need to release those two clips and push it through the other side. Looking at it from this side, those clips are about straight up and down. And I may be able to get at them from this side and just pinch them good enough to pull that through. So I'll try this from here and see how this works. I'll just go at it with a 45-degree pick and see if I can get behind there and pull these tabs. And I think I'll loosen it up enough where I can get behind this and push these tabs too. And I could probably just break this off if I wanted to. So I did get the top one freed up because I can get my finger behind there. So from there, I'll just try to release this bottom clip and pull it out. There we go. So now that that's loose, there's just one other plastic connector on the other side. And it's just a plastic fastener that I'll try to get with this fastener remover tool. So I'm going at it from behind the engine. I can move this wire out of the way, get this pry tool behind it, and hopefully pop it off. If not, I can grab it with those pliers and just yank it out. And I'm gonna do that because this is pretty impossible to film. So I'll just grab it with these and yank on it. And there we go. And I wouldn't recommend doing that because all that did was pull the wire off the clip and the broken clip is still in there. But fortunately, the other side of that clip is right here next to this cap here. So I can just get some pliers and squeeze that and push it through. And I've got some small needle nose pliers that I can get up in here and grab the tabs on that clip and push it through. So there we go, I've got the tabs pushed down and I'll just try to push it through with my other hand. For the sake of not spending a half hour on this one clip, I'm just gonna cut it off with my side cutters. One way or another, I'll get this thing out. And hopefully I mangled it up enough now that I can push it through. There we go, got it through. So all it took was side cutters and angled needle nose pliers and I got it pushed through there. And unfortunately, one of the difficulties of working on your own car is you'll spend 10, 15, 20 minutes on something like this. But I did get it out, I got it pushed through the other side and it fell on the floor. So now that that's out, everything's loose. Now I can work on getting this top bracket out. The nut on it is probably a 10 millimeter. So I've got a deep 10 millimeter socket on a 1/4-inch drive wrench. And that wasn't too bad to get out. And there's also one right here. That one wasn't too bad either. And that one's a bolt, not a nut. And last but not least is this one down here. It's nice all of them were 10 millimeters. All right, and that should be it. So with all those out, I can start taking this out. I just need to get behind this. Can't just pull it out. So I'm gonna try to get behind it with my side cutters. I can also try hitting it right here and see if that knocks it loose. So I'll try scraping it a bit with my pick and see if I can get underneath it. There is a little dimple right here that I can get my pick into and try and pry up on it. These are usually seized on here pretty good. And before I bend my pick, I'll just scrape on it and see if I can break up some of this rust. So I could probably stick a screwdriver right here and hammer on it a little bit, try to break it free. And I should have known I wouldn't even get through one video without having to use some PB Blaster. So I'll put some of this down in here around the whole sensor and see if that'll loosen it up. I'll see if I can use a pry bar to knock it out. That seems to be moving it pretty good. Usually you can get them to turn a little bit and that'll loosen them up. Try to pry on it from this side and just about any angle I can go at it. And since they're right here, I'll try these electrical connector pliers and just grab it on both sides and try to turn it. And all I'm doing is breaking it apart.
Is there anything I could help you with?
No, but I appreciate you asking.
Yeah. I just want to watch you just work on your video.
Yeah, you can watch.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get this sensor out.
Yeah. Can I hand you the tool?
Yeah, sure, man. Well, it's a few days later, and I haven't made a whole lot of progress other than taking off parts that I didn't expect to take off in the first place to try to get this sensor out. Right now, I've got half the sensor left in the wheel hub and a screw sticking out of it, so I will talk you through how I got there. I started out using some PB Blaster and some pliers to try to loosen it up. I got my small pry tool underneath it and managed to snap it in half. So at that point, I tried to pull on it, and I ended up breaking the whole thing off. So with half the sensor stuck in there, I cleaned it up with a wire brush and filed it flat to try to drill it out. I started with the smallest drill bit I had and worked my way up. I couldn't get a good angle on it because the dust plate was in the way, so I took the caliper and the rotor off, and I tried to pull on the dust plate and found out that it's basically just rusted through. The screws on the dust plate are rusted so bad I don't think I'll be able to get it off, and with it looking as bad as it does, I really wanted to replace that. So I hopped on Amazon and started looking for a dust plate and realized that for not much more than a new dust plate would cost, I could just go ahead and get a whole new steering knuckle. So I tried bigger and bigger drill bits and used PB Blaster and some heat to try to loosen it up before I had the bright idea that I ought to just run a screw into it and see if I can pull it out with that. So that's where I'm at now. I've got a screw run down into it. I tried pulling that out with a hammer, but I couldn't get it. The dust plate needs replaced. And it was at that point that I realized this whole knuckle is really held on by 3 or 4 nuts. One on the upper ball joint and one on the lower ball joint and the tie rod. So for about $100, I just got a whole new steering knuckle. What sold me on this is that I don't just get a new dust plate, I also get a new wheel hub, a new knuckle. It came with a new lower ball joint. It even came with 2 axle nuts. So to get all those parts new, including a new dust plate for about $100, seemed like a really good deal. And rather than continuing to try to pull this screw out of here, I thought why not go ahead and replace the whole knuckle, get a new hub and dust plate out of it, and have an easier time installing that new sensor. So we'll see how this goes. The only issues that I see is that I don't get new nuts for the upper ball joint and the tie rod end, but I did get a new nut for the lower ball joint. So I may have to reuse those, but that's okay. And once I get this off, I am going to go ahead and try to remove this out of here with this screw, just in case you don't want to buy a whole new knuckle. If you want to see that, just fast forward to this timestamp and watch how I get this out after I've got the whole knuckle removed. But for now, I'm going to work on the nuts that I got to take off to get this old knuckle off. Figure I'm probably going to end up using an impact for some of this, but I am going to try to get them off without that, just in case you guys want to see how to get these off and you don't have an impact. So I'm going to organize my tools and get this rust cleaned up, and then I'll see if I can get this knuckle off. And I'm gonna start with this tie rod nut because I've already got the wheel turned and it looks to be a 17mm nut. So I've got a deep 17mm socket on my longest breaker bar. I'll just need to get this cotter pin out first. So I'll straighten it out and then try to push it through. And I can grab the other side with my side cutters and pull it through. Would be better to have some thicker side cutters, but these are cheap and I can replace them easily. So there we go, that wasn't too bad. So I'll get my deep socket on there with this breaker bar and see if I can bust it loose. And that was easier than I thought it was gonna be. So from there I can take it off the rest of the way with this battery ratchet. Next I'll loosen up this axle nut. It's a 32mm nut, and fortunately I do have a 32mm socket. So I'll try to take this off with the breaker bar first. There we go. And I may not have to use the impact after all. So with that loose, I'll work on the nut on the lower ball joint next. So I'll get the cotter pin out first, and that one's pretty loose, which is nice. Usually they're rusted in there real bad. I can bend this dust plate back to get it out of my way, and I think I can actually just get these out with these needle nose pliers. Makes me think somebody's probably done this work on this car before. It's got 350,000 miles on it, so I really doubt these are the original cotter pins. So I can use my side cutters to pull it out the rest of the way. And that really wasn't too bad for an old rusty cotter pin. And this one's a 17mm as well. So same thing, deep 17mm socket on a long breaker bar. And that one wasn't too bad either. So I'll use my battery ratchet, take it off the rest of the way. Throw it back on a few threads, and I'm willing to bet that as easy as those three were, this is going to be the one that gives me the most trouble. But I'll do it the same way I did the other ones. Straighten out the cotter pin, smash it down, try to push it through. And if this one gives me too much trouble, I can always just break it off by taking the nut off with it still in there. I don't like doing that, especially when I might have to reuse this nut. I don't want to mess up the threads on it. So I will try to get this out before trying to spin that nut off. And I got it to budge a little bit, so that gives me something to grab on this side. And so then I can grab it with my side cutters and pry it out the rest of the way and hope that I don't cut through it as I'm prying it. So it did snap off on one side, but I'll try and pull the other side out. And there we go. So I got this one out too, and so I'll use my breaker bar to break it loose. And then I can use the battery ratchet the rest of the way. And then thread it back on a couple threads. And so with all that off, I'm ready to take this off, but I do need to make sure if there's any brackets attached to it, I take those off, like this bracket for this brake line. It's got 2 bolts on it, and those are some pretty rounded off 10mm bolts. So since they're rounded off pretty good and they're exposed, I'm gonna go ahead and hit them with PB Blaster just to make sure that I don't round these off worse and have an even bigger problem on my hands. And I wish I had a 6-point wrench, but I don't, so I'm gonna use the box end of this 12-point 10mm wrench. And these are actually not very tight at all because I can get them off pretty easily. So the PB Blaster was probably overkill, but better to be safe than sorry. So I'll get this one off too and spin these out the rest of the way. So far, taking off this knuckle has not had any problems, which is nice. It's rare that I take off a part that's got this many nuts and bolts without having something go wrong or get stuck or end up spending a half hour trying to get one nut or one bolt loose. So all in all, good news so far. Starting to think it might have been a good idea to replace this knuckle after all. It seemed like overkill, but I really just wanted to replace that dust plate, and I couldn't really even find a dust plate. And once I saw that whole knuckle with the dust plate on it and a lower ball joint for $100, I realized that that was probably going to be the best way to go. So if I pick this caliper up, it loosens the tension on this nut and I can get it out the rest of the way. And then I can see how that's going to affect this caliper hanging on this one tiny cheap bungee cord. All right, there we go. That bracket is loose, and the caliper can still hang there just fine without putting tension on the brake line. So now that I've got everything loose, I think I'm ready to take this knuckle off. I'll push on the axle shaft and see if I can push that through, which that's good. So I'll try hitting this upper ball joint on the sides and see if it'll drop down. There we go. Got the tie rod out, and the upper ball joint is also loose. So I'll get this nut back on, hit it a couple times. There we go. Take this castle nut back off. And then I can take this nut off the upper ball joint and it should drop down. So there we go. Now that the whole thing's out, I can tilt it forward and I can push this axle shaft through. Pull the tie rod end out. And I did get the axle all the way out. And now I can just lift the whole thing out. And there we go. I got the whole knuckle out. And comparing these two, I don't see anything that looks different from the old one to the new one. This new one looks like really good quality, and it came with this expanding foam in the packaging, so I appreciate that they use that in the packaging because that tells you they don't want this to get damaged before it gets to you. So to me that indicates that this is probably pretty good quality. Looking at it from the back side, everything looks the same too. The shape of the brackets for the caliper look a little different, but I'm not concerned about that. The location where the bracket for the brake line goes is in the same spot, as well as the bracket for the ABS sensor that we're actually replacing in the first place. So overall, I think this one looks really good. I'm gonna go ahead and install it. The first thing I need to do is take off this castle nut so that I can put this lower ball joint into its spot. And then I'll reuse any nuts that I have to reuse, but it did come with a new castle nut for the lower ball joint and a new axle nut. So with the castle nut off the lower ball joint, I'm gonna slide that into place and then try to get this axle in the hub. I can lift up on the axle, put that into place, and then slide the axle through. There we go, I got it to slide through. All right, so that worked. I just had to move it around a little bit. It did come with two new axle nuts. One is larger than the other, so I'm gonna match up my old one to the one that I need. And I'll use that one and go ahead and put it on here. So I'll just put it on a couple threads, and then I'll tighten it down later once I get everything connected. So at this point, I'll say normally I would clean all this stuff up and use anti-seize when I put these new nuts on. This car's got 350,000 miles on it, so I'm not planning on changing this part out again. So I'm kind of okay with not doing that right now. But if you're doing this and you expect your car to last a whole lot longer, then you should probably put anti-seize under this axle nut and on the top side of this ball joint bracket before you put the lower ball joint in. Same with the upper ball joint up here. I really wish I didn't have to reuse this nut, but I'm gonna go ahead and use it. It should be fine. I just always like getting new hardware if I can. And same thing here with this tie rod. I would put anti-seize right here before I put this on. Get this lined up and then put this nut back on. I probably have a nut on hand that would work for that, but I'm just gonna go ahead and reuse this one. The new castle nut for the lower ball joint doesn't have this flange like the old one does, but I can't reuse the old one because I hammered the crap out of it in order to get that lower ball joint off. So I'm gonna trust this one. It may not be the best idea, but that's what I'm gonna use since it's new and I don't really have another option. And so now that I've got all that finger tight, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten them all down to spec. I'll start with the axle nut. It gets torqued down to 181 foot-pounds. The tie rod nut gets torqued to 43 foot-pounds. The lower ball joint gets torqued to 29 foot-pounds. And then the upper ball joint gets torqued to 32 foot-pounds. And so now I'll just need to tighten these until I can see the hole for the cotter pin. I've got a cotter pin kit, I'll link this in the description, but I'll use one of these to make sure that the hole lines up with these notches on the castle nut. And then check and see if my cotter pin will fit in there. And then tighten it a little bit more if I need to. Check it again, and I'll try to tighten it just a little bit further. And I should have checked this first, but I've got some cotter pin material in this hole, so I've got the smallest drill bit I could find. And I'm hoping I don't break this drill bit off in here, but I'd like to get a cotter pin in here if I can. There we go, I got it through. It does come with one that's really small that fits through, and it looks like it will go all the way through, but I'll go ahead and wrap it around. It's gonna be better than nothing, but I can't get the one that's a little bit larger to get in there. So I'll leave that one for now. And I'll get one in here for this tie rod nut. And same problem here. This one hardly fits through. So I'll use some pliers and see if I can push it through. There we go. And so now I'll bend this one around too. I'll bend one side down and I'll take the other one around. So that one's good. The lower ball joint came with a cotter pin, but I'm just gonna go ahead and use a new one anyway. I've got it in there, I'll bend one side around, and then I can bend the other side around this way. And some needle nose pliers help with bending these. And I think that's good enough. And last but not least is the axle nut. Instead of having a cotter pin, you just punch a divot right here into this slot. So I'll start with a flat punch. And then I'll move to a pointed punch. And that should work. Not the best looking, but it'll get the job done. And then I can get the rotor back on. I'll use one of the lug nuts to hold it in place. And then that'll keep the rotor lined up while I get this caliper back on. So I'll get this lined up with the bracket, slide the pads over the rotor, and slide it into place. I'll get it lined up and then slide the caliper around. I just gotta wiggle it around a little bit until the bolt starts threading into it. There we go. I got the top one started. And the same thing with the bottom bolt, just stick the bolt through, wiggle the caliper around a little bit until the threads start catching. I'll run it down the rest of the way with the battery ratchet. And then these will get torqued down to 80 foot-pounds. Next, I can reattach this brake line bracket. I didn't pay attention to this when I took them off, but one is slightly longer than the other. This bottom one sticks out further than the top one. So I'm gonna put the longer screw on the top, and I'm gonna hope that that's right. So I'll just use a quarter drive with a 10mm socket to tighten these down. These were not super tight to begin with, so I'm not gonna worry about torque specs. I'll just tighten them down as much as I can with this and call that good. And so now with all that done, I can go in and finish what I started. Get this old ABS sensor through here. I already compared the old one with the new one, but with both of them out, it's good to just take a look at them side by side and make sure everything lines up. Orange connectors look the same, the white plug looks the same, this bracket looks good, and so does this one. And then the actual sensor on the new one, that looks way better than my old one does now. I'll start by fishing this orange connector through this hole, and I'll leave this white plug loose right here for now until I get everything connected on the other side. I'll apologize now if this isn't the best shot of this, but I can pull the orange connector through here, get this black fastener, snap that into place, and then attach the orange connector and make sure that snaps down. There we go. And before I get this side of the sensor installed, I want to show you a mistake that I made. I realized that I didn't put this dust ring in. This ring goes on the back side of the hub, and it's got that notch cut out for it for where the sensor comes through. And so this should be installed on the back side of this hub. Now I've already got the axle nut torqued down and the notch cut into it, so I really don't want to take that off just to put this dust ring on. I can confirm that the purpose of this is just to keep dust out of the bearing back there so it doesn't fail prematurely. That being said, if I could do it over, I would definitely include this in there. But since I'm this far along, I'm gonna leave it out. Like I said, this car's got 350,000 miles on it, so if that bearing lasted that long, I expect that this one, even without that dust ring, is gonna be just fine. Another thing I wanna point out is that this rotor has these holes right here for the rotor screws. You don't really need them because they just hold the rotor on during assembly. After that, they don't really have a purpose. The lug nuts will hold the wheel onto the rotor and then sandwich it in between the hub and the wheel, so you really don't need those screws. But if you tried to take those out before, you know how much of a pain they can be, so I always just leave them out after I take them out the first time. But you really should put them in because they're supposed to be there, or so they say. So now I'm ready to attach this white cap. I'll just push it in here until it clicks. It does have a slot for this part that sticks out, so I'll line that up and just push it in. Next, I'll attach this bracket up here, and then I'll get the nut back on. This is a 10mm nut, and it was not super tight. This bracket does have a notch that goes up into a hole right here, so I just want to make sure that that is still in place as I tighten this down. And I'll just get it snug, and that should be good. And then same thing with this bracket here. It's got a little tab that goes in this bottom hole here, and then the screw will go through this hole. So I'll line up the tab first, and then get the screw started. I'll go ahead and use a 10mm wrench so you can see how tight I'm getting it. And then last but not least is going to be the actual sensor. It would probably be best to use some kind of dielectric grease or something here, but I'm not too worried about it at this point. I kind of just want to get this done. So now that I've got the sensor in there, I can just tighten this bolt down and make sure that it stays flush where it's supposed to be and can't really turn. And this doesn't need to be super tight because it's plastic. So I'll tighten that up, maybe give it a little bit of another turn, and I'll call that good. So with everything put back together, I feel like it looks fine. All I need to do now is put the wheel back on, but first I want to try to get that old sensor out like I promised earlier in the video. So right here is the back side of the sensor. I would really just need to push on this to get this out, and I've got a screw ran into it on this side, and that's where I left off when I finally decided I'll just get a new knuckle. So I'm sure I can find a way to get this screw out. I did quit running the screw in there because I wasn't sure how far it was going in and what it was going into, but it looks like I could probably go further, so that's what I'm going to try first, and I'll see if running that deeper in there is going to help me get this out. So that's about as deep as I can get it. First thing I'm going to try is this trim removal tool and see if I can pry on this and pull it out. And that is really in there. And if I move the screw, the sensor is not moving at all. So it's jammed in there pretty good. I'll see if I can pry on the screw and hopefully loosen up that sensor, whatever's got it bonded in there. I had dumped a punch PB Blaster in there and it's been sitting for quite a few days now, so I don't know that any more PB Blaster is going to help me. So if I put the knuckle down on the floor, I can get some leverage right here on the side of this knuckle. And that's about the most prying pressure I can get on this thing. And even that's not working. So I'll try to get my clamping pliers under this screw so that I can stick my pry bar under here and pry out on it. I don't know how well this is going to work, but I can't really think of much else to get this out. And it really just looks like I'm going to break that screw before I get this thing out of here. I really just can't get enough leverage under here. And I don't know, this thing's moving around quite a bit. It might have been easier with it still attached in the vehicle. So I can also try a punch on this side and see how much force it's going to take to get this out. At that point, you'd have to take the hub off anyway. And if you're going to do that, you might as well replace it. This thing is really rusted in there, and I really thought this would get it out. So So at this point, I guess I'll just bust it open the rest of the way. And it's still not coming out. So I'll see if I can back this screw back out. And then I'll try a T25 screw with my impact driver. And it's even stripping that one out. And the screw is all the way through, so I'm gonna back it back out. And there we go. So I can confirm that you can use an 1¼ inch long T25 screw to drill all the way through that and you won't get into the wheel hub at all. If you try that and you still can't get the sensor out, then I would definitely suggest getting a whole new knuckle. At this point, I've completely shattered the rest of that sensor. That's what all these bits are down here. And there is still melted plastic in that hole. So I would have to clean all that out and put a new sensor in if I wanted to save this knuckle. I imagine you could just torch it and burn through all of it and then clean it up, but I don't know what kind of bits you'd have left over on the inside here. It sounds like a mess. I think this was the right way to go for me to just replace the knuckle. And if you need more evidence that purchasing a new knuckle was the right way to go, this ball joint's bad too, so I would have needed to replace that too. So I definitely think that replacing the whole knuckle was the way to go. I hate to tell you that's what you got to do to change that sensor, and hopefully yours comes out easier than mine did. But I got a new ball joint out of it, and now I know the knuckle is going to last another 350,000 miles. So I'll go ahead and get the wheel back on, we'll clear the ABS code and make sure that it doesn't come back. All right, and there we go. The Honda's got a new wheel hub, knuckle, sensor, and lower ball joint. So I'll get in and clear the ABS code, drive around for a while, and see if it comes back. There's a couple of ways that you can clear the ABS light. The easiest that I like is just disconnecting the negative terminal on the battery for about 10 minutes. For me, it's even easier. I don't even have to disconnect the terminal because I've got a remote battery disconnect. And I turned this off after I was working on it a couple of days because I've got a parasitic draw somewhere on this car. I thought it was coming from the radio. I thought changing out the radio was gonna fix that, but evidently it didn't, because right now my battery's sitting pretty low on voltage. So I threw my cheap battery tester on it to test the battery real quick, and it's showing that the battery needs to be replaced, which is weird because this is a new battery. I just put it in months ago. So I really need to test this battery and make sure that it's still good, figure out where my parasitic draw is coming from, and at that point I'd like to make sure that the ABS light is still off. So that being said, I did clear the ABS light with this. And for the first time in a long time, I don't have a single light on the dash right now. That's a really good feeling, so I'm gonna drive it around for a while, make sure that light doesn't come back. In order for me to really determine if that light's gone, I'm gonna need to drive it around for a while. I also want to charge this battery and retest it. So I need to make sure the battery's still good. I need to give the car time to run through the cycles that it needs to make sure that that ABS light doesn't come back. And so while I can't give you a definitive result right now, initial tests show that we cleared the ABS light and we have no lights on the dash. So once again, I used way more tools than I thought I would in the beginning. I'll link some of this in the description for you. If nothing else, I feel a lot better about having that new knuckle with a new ball joint. We got a new sensor put in. The ABS light is off, so that is all good news. I will post an update in the comments once I do all the tests that I need to do and find out if I actually cleared the light for good. So if you've already made it this far into the video, jump down in the comments, check out if I posted an update yet. I'll let you know one way or the other if I fixed the ABS light for good. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see some more content on this Honda Accord. Chances are if you're watching this video, you're not subscribed to me, and I do a lot of work on this car. I'm going to try to get it to over 500,000 miles. Everything is original. I believe that that old knuckle is the original knuckle that came on this car. If that's the case, the sensor, the knuckle, the wheel bearing, the lower ball joint, all of that lasted 350,000 miles. The sensor's been out for some time, and as you can see when I tried to take it off, it's probably been broken for a while. But I think that's all I needed to clear my ABS light, so that is good news. And with that, guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Check out some of my other videos on this Honda Accord. Subscribe to see some more work that I'm going to do on it, including figuring out this parasitic draw that I've had for a long time. And good luck with your project, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.